Hey guys, it's Charles from In The Mess. Today we've got a video for you that we hope will help you hit the ground running when you start your placements in August. We know that there's an awful lot to think about when you're moving from being a student to being a practicing FY1, so we thought it would be helpful if we got hold of some people who had a bit of time to share some of the insights that they have, having worked in those areas. So today we've got some insights from an orthopaedic registrar and somebody who's recently been a foundation doctor in an orthopaedic ward. They're going to hopefully give you some hints and tips on how to read up on the things that are going to be the most high return and how to run the ward smoothly and make the most out of your attachment. Now, this was filmed a little while ago in a part of the hospital that had really good ventilation, which made it great for COVID, but it wasn't great for the microphone, so please excuse the background hum. Nevertheless, I hope this is really useful for you and it gives you some really helpful advice for getting started in August. As always, don't forget to like this video for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new content.
So, hi, I'm Becky, I'm an F1 at Aberdeen Royal and I've just finished my rotation on orthopaedics.
Hi, I'm Duncan, I'm one of the orthopaedic ST5s at Aberdeen Royal.
So I think starting out on orthopaedics I was a bit nervous because I think it's fair to say orthopaedics has a bad reputation, but I actually quite enjoyed it, which I think a few of the F1s did find it quite hard and it is intense. But I feel like you learn so much just because you've got to just get on with it and do it. So I found it a really good learning experience for me.
So why do you think orthopaedics has a bad reputation? What are the myths around it?
I think orthopaedic surgeons themselves, there's always a stereotype of every specialty.
Yeah.
And I think there is definitely a stereotype that orthopaedic surgeons are all quite like rugby lads and lots of like banter and very like things certain ways, which to be fair, the rugby lad thing is true. But actually I found all of you guys, all the registrars and all the consultants as well, everyone's actually really approachable. Yeah. And was happy to help.
Good.
But I think the trauma meeting as well, I think everyone sees that, especially because it is the normal thing of the juniors answer the questions about the x-rays and then it goes up in rank.
Yeah, I can imagine being quite daunting, particularly if you're a new FY1 coming into those scenarios, because yeah, as you say, you're kind of put on the spot, aren't you? From the very first go. So like you have to review patients on your own and make decisions on your own often. And in the morning meetings, you're often asked questions which you have to have the answer to, and if you don't have the answer, you'll be held accountable for that, which is daunting, but also makes you step up and become a doctor. I think.
In a way, the F1s and the F2s, we were kind of running the ward and then calling you guys if we needed help with anything.
Yeah. And
it made you had to make the decisions, so you just did it rather than constantly checking with someone senior.
So what did you wish you'd known then before you started? So if you were like day one FY1 at the start, so like your first rotation, you have no experience in medicine, what would your sort of recommendations be?
Organisation is key.
Yeah.
And job prioritisation. Everyone, I think the days where the job book got ignored and no one wrote in it were the days that started to go a bit chaotic, which I had no idea what was going on, and things just slipped through the net. So I think keeping the job book up to date is always a must. It's
about delegation, but also trying to figure out what jobs need to be done first and then what jobs don't need to be prioritised. If it was a routine set of bloods, you knew that could get done at the end of the shift or mid-shift, but if there was a patient who had a high news or was unwell, you knew to prioritise and review those patients early. Or even if it was a discharge that needs to be done to make beds available. And most importantly for us, if it's a patient who's going to be first in theatre that day, you guys always knew to make sure the ECG was there and the chest x-ray was there, and you had the patient ready for theatre, or if not, you knew the job was the top of the list.
If you're on a night shift, as soon as it got quiet, going through who was actually on the list for theatre the next day and making sure everything was done.
Yeah.
Because I think on my first couple of nights I left it until about like 5-6 a.m. and by that point if everyone was missing an ECG that was on the theatre list, you just didn't have time to get through it all. I think the biggest thing for me was just asking for help.
Yeah.
I think it's really easy. There was one night shift I remember I had 2 patients on the ward who were really sick and I just about had a handle on them, and then someone came up from A&E with a news of 11 and I was just like, I am out my depth. I can't deal with 3 sick patients at once. And I think actually the nurses clocked quicker than I did and they called the advanced nurse practitioners.
Yeah.
And they came up and gave me a hand. And just having that extra set of hands just made it so much easier, and it was all very manageable just with someone there to help. Have the BNF on your phone checked.
Yeah, that's
because
good,
I think the couple of times it went wrong was when the juniors turned around to the nurse and like, oh no, that's what I want to give, it's fine. Rather than just doubly checking, especially the senior nurses, they know this stuff.
And the other thing I always find, and still find, is I have a little Bible of quick phone numbers on my phone. I know there's apps like the Induction app now, which has all the hospital phone numbers, but I have like a shortcut on my phone to all the key phone numbers for things like different wards, labs, theatres, X-ray, all the quick numbers. I think that was a massive help. What about referrals? So, if you're referring to another specialty or even referring to us, what did you, any kind of tips for the?
I would say have everything in front of you before you pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Especially the news chart. I feel like that's the one that everyone forgets. You get the notes and you get the Cardex and you forget the news chart, and quite often the first question when you finish your little S-bar is, so what are their observations at the moment? And you're like, oh,
yeah.
Gosh.
When I'm receiving referrals, there's nothing more that I hate is when the person on the end of the phone, I ask, well, how is the patient? What's the examination findings? And they go, well, I've not examined the patients. And often that's not 100% their fault. They've gone on a ward round and the consultant or the registrar has seen a patient and said, right, refer them to orthopaedics. But it's still if you're referring someone, it's your responsibility to examine the patient, check the neurovascular status, make sure you know the history, you know the social history. So important for orthopaedics, like, is the person fit for surgery? Is the person right or left-handed? What are the medical comorbidities? Are they on blood thinners? All these things you need to know. You can ask a 2-minute conversation with the patient, and there's nothing we hate most for that. And then the other thing is collecting all the information. So making sure we always need an X-ray. There's very few cases I would say we don't ask for X-rays in. And so if someone calls me saying with an S-bar with an X-ray completed, they've got the bloods in front of them, and they have a nice succinct history and examination findings, then I'll never say no to review them, because I'm like, well, you've done all the right things. Did you find scenarios where you had a sick patient and you try to call for help, like we were in theatre and you just got, no, we can't come up? Did that happen?
I think it happened once or twice, but it tended to be either it was we can't come up right now, but I'd already given them fluids, and it was give it time for the fluids to go through, see if they respond, and then we'll be up in time to see them after that's happened.
Yeah.
Or it was we don't have time to come up, they sound really sick, so just call the med reg on call.
Well, because there are times in theatre that you physically can't come up. You might be doing the surgery on your own, or you may be in a case where you are an essential participant and you physically won't be able to come up. But there are always other people around, or at least there should be. So there should always be someone on call. During the day, there should always be someone from clinic to contact. If the patient's very sick and you're not getting through to anyone, or the person on call is in A&E dealing with another sick patient, there's the medical registrar, and you can keep escalating up to the consultant, and you can keep escalating higher if the patient gets really unwell. You can always peri-arrest calls and things like that. There are always options.
I did think there have been a couple of times as well I've noticed. Sometimes I think because if you guys have been in theatre or whatever, there's been someone who's been really sick that probably should have been spoken to a registrar earlier, but everyone's gone, oh, let's wait till they're back from theatre because they're busy. And in that scenario, I think I would say always, if you think someone needs to be discussed with a registrar, then just call them.
I would encourage that as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because I feel like you'll never get annoyed if I've ever been to see a patient and I've tried my best and I'm like, I've tried this and tried that, I've got nowhere else to go, or even if it's I've gone to see them and I'm out my depth, I need some help. I don't think I've ever had the registrar ever turn around and be annoyed with that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Admitting an ortho patient, make sure you actually looked at the joint that's broken. I think it's quite easy to just ignore that, but actually you've got to doubly check that they are neurovascularly intact and everything's okay.
Absolutely.
And like you said earlier, I hadn't realised before I started ortho how important a smoking history and an alcohol history were to orthopaedics.
Yeah.
And their functional status. So it's like all those ones at the end of your history that you kind of think aren't that important, but you do them anyway for the OSCE to tick the box.
Yeah.
But actually orthopaedics, you guys really want to know that.
Absolutely. hip fractures have got to be our sort of bread and butter, most common operation, and then also the key thing with hip fractures is normally symptomatic of frailty. It's generally an injury of frailty, so all the other comorbidities that come with it. So appreciating that hip fracture is not just a hip fracture, it's someone who's probably got superadded chest infection, a urine infection. So that sort of whole idea when you part the patient that you should probably look for a reason why they fell, because often it's not fault, it's a syncope. I would say, personally, ankle fractures are very common in our ward, and knowing how to do a neurovascular examination on a foot. So a lot of people come thinking that a neurovascular examination for a hip or an ankle fracture is doing a dermatome test, where actually no, it's a peripheral nerve examination. And then the other key thing, as you're saying, like critical limb ischemia would be for us compartment syndrome, which is, it's a classic orthopaedic emergency, but it's definitely one to read up on.
If someone's in a cast, as soon as you think there's some compartment syndrome going on, even if I wasn't sure or I was just a bit nervous about it, I tend to be like, you guys can redo the cast if you need to.
Absolutely, that's the key steps. If I was in theatre and you say, I think someone's in compartment syndrome, I've already split the cast and cut the wall, I'd be like, right, you need to go and see this patient because you're doing the perfect steps. And that's the kind of thing we're looking for, as an FY1. It's all we're really wanting to do for compartment syndrome is recognising this risk and then doing the early interventions. And then obviously, we can have a look and take it forward. I say, personally, it's please come or help. It's a request for attendance, not, I feel when you're going for a referral, if you open with what you want, an SBAR is super important, but I like a quick sort of headline to your SBAR, which is, I will need you to come see this patient, or I need some advice, because that sets the tone for what it is. If it's some advice, I can go, yeah, fine, Harvard, I need to see this patient. I'll probably start walking towards where you are before I even, because there's a difference in tone between those two. So I like that as a headline to your SBARs. I need you to come, or I need some advice, because it's completely different pathways you're going down.
I think definitely people that like hands-on, and as an F1, as someone who likes to get stuck in with the sick patients medically, I think if you like to have a senior over your back, or like always there supporting you, then that's not really going to be the case. You need to have the initiative to do it yourself, which is why I really liked it. Because I liked being able to go see the sick patient, I did everything I could, and then I called a senior for advice and extra help. But I liked having that first stage. I think someone who likes sick patients, as controversial as that might sound.
I think for a registrar, orthopaedics, I think it definitely attracts people who are logically minded, who are practical, as you say. We like to see variety in their job. I think particularly on the trauma, I think you have to remember it's hard work. So if you're going to, do it, you need to know it's got something